World at War or Infinity War. I think it was in Infinity War. Infinite Warfare. It was released to be a road bump for Infinite Warfare. It had a superior story than Infinite Warfare. It had better voice acting. It had better direction. It had better clarity, everything. But it was a road bump, which was such a fucking disaster for that. So that's a good example of, like, you really have to think about not only if the game's good or not, but the legs it's going to have and what you need to do in order to ensure that your game's going to succeed long term. Sometimes you get lucky and people just find it, and then it creates there's an audience. That's not always the case. Hey, how you doing, Barkley? There are citizens in the Milky Way.
All right, we are. Okay, drop some MechWarrior. Warming up to the Star Citizen news. Hey, Corpse. Are we all checking out, or is everything screwed up like it is sometimes? Just sometimes. You play MechWarrior, don't you, Corpse?
Can't believe the Plexus actually won.
You should come drop with me, or at least get on my friends list.
Can I admit it's better than the Arctic.
Oh, this map's really bad for missiles. And I'm pretty much all missiles. And this kind of sucks. Okay, this is on Alpha. Right? Here we go. Got a positive lock on Beta. Hammering him. Lost him. Going for Charlie. Edward. This was on Charlie. You guys could hold the lock, I could get him.
New target acquired. Artillery strike online. Target acquired. New target acquired.
Quick draw Charlie. Missiles out.
New target acquired. Target acquired.
Don't everybody leave the circle.
Got lights in the back. E8, ER larges. 2 lights. Oh. E7.
System destroyed.
Lots of them.
Come on, guys, pull this out. Pull it.
Got a focus target.
Yeah, you guys are really not working together. That was a really bad team. Really bad.
New target acquired.
Coordinate one mech and
New target acquired.
Your efforts here have been seriously disappointing. The enemy
Seriously.
is victorious.
It wasn't my fault. It was my team's fault. Trust me. It's like they never heard of a lock.
I got a love that I can't chase. The kind of mystery won't fade. I gotta wait for you alone. And I'm wasting away. You've taken everything that I want till there's nothing left in me. And there's no room left to breathe. You're changing everything that I need. 'Cause there's nowhere left to hide when there's nothing to believe. Would you leave me here behind? Would you love to watch me cry? Would you like to fly away? I could show you the truth if you'd only let me lose. If you told me what you need. And I'm fading away. You've taken everything that I want till there's nothing left in me. And there's no room left to breathe. You're changing everything that I need. 'Cause there's nowhere left to hide when there's nothing to believe.
You there, Eclipse? Can you hear me, Eclipse? I was wondering if you had a mech. Oh.
Echo online. Sensors online. Weapons online.
And I'm
All systems online.
You've taken everything that I want till there's nothing left in me. And there's no room left to breathe. You're changing everything that I need. 'Cause there's nowhere left to hide when there's nothing to believe. I'm wasting away.
Wake up.
Till there's nothing left in me, and there's no room left to breathe. I'm fading.
Target acquired. New target acquired.
There's nowhere left to hide when there's nothing to believe.
Artillery strike online.
Would you love to watch me cry? Would you like to fly away?
New target acquired.
Should you take me from this darkness left inside?
New target acquired. Target spotted. Target spotted. Rolling incoming missile. New target acquired. 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 Artillery strike online. New target acquired. Target destroyed. New target acquired. New target acquired. Target destroyed. New target acquired. Heat level. Rolling incoming missiles. Target destroyed. Target acquired. Major torso critical damage. Activating. New target acquired. Artillery strike activated.
Okay, go get your dinner, buddy. I'm gonna fill up my tea real quick.
Destroyed.
You told me it's what you've earned. Every don't know what went wrong. I can't believe she's gone. I can't breathe now that you're gone. She's gone away to the city. She's gone away to the lights. She's gone away. She's gone away to the city. She's gone away to the lights. She's gone away. In the city of angels, the city of angels, you've gone away so far away. In the city of angels, the city of angels, you've gone away so far away from me.
Alright, I'm back. We'll drop another order. Different Mac. Let's check this one.
This time you're looking around with your face in the ground. Seeing you took the best of me. Too many people we know this feeling being alone. You can chase broken memories. We can't go on feeling this empty. Just tell me something. Tell me I can come alive. No breaking me down. Nowhere to run. I'm facing you now. You can't take it all. You can't take it all. Commit to your mouth. Nowhere to run. I'm taking you out. You can't take it all. You can't take it all. 10 days of walking
It's a night mission.
without a place to go. I point my fist into the sky. Just tell me, how does it feel? Tell me it used to be real. I shake my head and wonder why we
Good luck, guys.
can't go on.
Good luck.
Feeling this empty. Just tell me something. Tell me I can come alive. No breaking me down. Nowhere to run. I'm facing you now. You can't take it all.
No, but now I do.
Commit to your mouth. Nowhere to run. I'm taking you out. You can't take it all. You can't take it all.
Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems online.
I think if we build a wall, make it harder for enemy mechs to come in.
You've played, what is that? Out of Souls, but, the mode with the stone dumbass wall.
We'll make the
Wall
enemy
and
team pay
civilization
for it.
too. You can build a wall of warriors so they can't cross.
They got guns, pulse lasers. Good. Good.
Target acquired.
Oh, yeah. Good. Fuck's hitting me?
Target destroyed.
Ooh, nice shot.
New target acquired. Target acquired.
Show you how we never tried. Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm disappearing. Fighting history. One day you'll see me run out of all these feelings. Lost in memories. Someone say that we're all meant to weather the storm. Close your eyes till it's safe to go home. You don't have to be running from reason. The only end is the one you're beginning.
I lost half my mech.
I'm pitching it forward a bit. Going for Julia. Going for Julia.
Holy shit. I'm in big trouble.
Target destroyed. Warning, incoming missile.
Going for Charlie.
Target acquired. Target destroyed.
Good shot.
After the storm,
I literally got half a mech.
there is a bridge not far.
Blew my whole side off there. Pretty cool.
This was born, and out of the night, every soul has come to life.
Come on, give me that lock. Oh, juicy fruit.
New target acquired.
Blood asp.
Something up here, Johnny.
New target acquired.
Honestly, keep up, eh?
Arctic cheetah. This is on him.
Target destroyed.
Nice. One left.
Up top, Echo 4.
Target acquired.
Oh, my little LRMs will find him. Yes. Pecking away at him slowly but surely.
Online. Target destroyed.
Good, man.
The scars on her face, life of agony. She falls from grace. There's no light. She tries to find a way out of the dark.
Got time for one more drop.
Still see what she wants to be. A star on the sky. She wants to fly. She still tries, but break down and lies. But she's fallen down with a golden crown. She wants only glory, trapped in a story. Confession, she's starting a dream. Confession, she really wanted peace, and she can't escape from her fate. Still her demons call. She has to fall to rise.
Searching. Searching for a long time. Okay, let's try it one more time. We'll do the news. 9 minutes, we'll do the news.
Never want to hurt you. Never want to see you cry. Never want to lie to you. Oh, but I do. Never want to say these
Hey, we got all our assaults over in F9, guys. Just wait up a little bit. Alright, looks like we got the enemy over there in G6. Oh, there we go. Looks like I was wrong. More like G7?
New target acquired. New target acquired.
Party of 2 over in G8 trying to flank us. ECM coverage. They're there. Yeah, their whole team's pushing that way. They're like looping around. Kodiak, Edward.
New target acquired. New target acquired. New target acquired. New target acquired. Artillery strike online.
We're half down. Don't let the hostiles take down any more of you.
Artillery strike online.
Nothing's left, nothing's to
Activated.
lose. This life I had to choose. Dark walls to bear. No one else would like to share. It's a matter of fact that my heart's
stop blowing up. Okay, it's time for the news. Hello, Aliscar. Nice to see you here tonight. Doing some news. My mom said I could do some news. All right. So I'm not expecting that much new news because we did news yesterday. And not a lot's been going on, but definitely take a peek. Nothing from Day Late. STL. Nothing new. $16 hours ago. I don't know, did we watch this yesterday? No, because yesterday would have been 24 hours ago. Right? Yeah. So we haven't seen this one. Tactical Advance. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tactical Advance here, and welcome to a tutorial video. Now, the purpose of this video is to help new players that are coming into the game. Can be a little bit overwhelming when you first boot up Star Citizen. It's not 100% clear what you should be doing or what you can do in the game. And today, I'm hoping I'm going to shed a bit of light onto that topic and help some of these new people out that are joining Star Citizen. Just before we start, I've left a link in the description below to a link to the Star Citizen site where you can take a look at the package page. And also, there's my referral link there as well that will give you some in-game cash if you're thinking about signing up. Okay, so let's get started. When you spawn in for the first time in Star Citizen, you will spawn in at Port Olisar. This is the main spawning location. When you come down to the bottom of the stairs, you will see the center terminals. This is where you select your ship. Your main tool inside of Star Citizen is your Mobiglass. On the first tab, you will notice that you have comms. This is where you can see the main chat channel, and also you can see your friends in your friends list as well. If you want to invite someone from your friends list, what you need to do is right click, and then once you've right clicked, you can invite them as well. You can add people from here as well. And also you can remove, it can be used for hailing, for landing. For instance, if I was flying into Port Olisar, I could then click on this and it would request landing. So moving on, the next one in the tab is your ship loadout. So on this tab, you can view the ships you own. So you can select one of your ships. And then what you can do is then you can swap out individual weapons, power plants, and so on. These items can be bought from Port Olisar if you run around the edges of the outside of this center console area. Moving on to the next tab, we have...
I must say, Star Citizen, for not having any tutorials or anything like that built into the game that I'm aware of, it seems... I've never really gotten lost in the Star Citizen interface. It's pretty self-explanatory.
your suit selection. So this is once you've bought a new suit or maybe a new weapon and you want to equip it on your character, you simply come into this menu, select from whatever item you've purchased or you would like to equip. Like for instance, I can de-equip this now by unequipping, and then I click on save, and then it de-equips it from the character. You can do exactly the same with the suits and also the general clothing. Next up is the star map. The star map is going to be your go-to for navigating around Star Citizen. If you just scroll back on the mouse wheel to get yourself this view, and if you hold left mouse button, you can move up and down as well. If you double click on one of the locations, for instance like Hurston, it then expands that area out, and then you can carry on clicking even further if you choose to. To set a destination to jump to, simply select the location, and then once you're in your ship, just select route. But we'll show you that once we get inside of a ship in a minute. Next up, we have your journal. The journal's just here for entries that you've done in the past. The next one in line is the LiveWorks AR. This gives you the ability to walk up to your ship and remove and remove modules live from the ship when the ship's in front of you. This was used in the hangar module as well quite a while ago. Next in line is the repair, restock and refuel. This can be used when you are landed on pretty much any pad. So if you land on a pad somewhere, as long as it's manned, you can land and open this menu up while you're in the cockpit, and then just click on what you want to refill and rearm and click on confirm. And the final one is the missions. Now with the missions, you have a few options. You have basic general missions here. You have personal missions that are, appointed to you only. You've got accepted, which is clearly quite straightforward. And then you also get history as well. The last one down the end here is beacons. What you can do with this is if you get stranded in a location, you can create a beacon. And you can select combat assist, personal transport, and so on and so on. You can fill all this out. And you can put a payment as well. So you can say, I want to go to this location, and I'm willing to pay X amount of money. And then once you broadcast that, players can then come and pick you up or kill you, depending on how they feel. Well, that's an overview of the mobiGlas, very short and sweet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select a ship and load some cargo, and then we will accept a mission and then talk about some other key things that will help you along the way. Starting off with cargo. If you want to do a cargo mission, it's very, very easy to do. This is the ship terminal that is in the center here. Just behind me here, these little side terminals. This is a trading terminal. You will see these around in different locations, i.e. on planets, on moons. Simply select the ship you've got. Let's say for the Freelancer. Going to click medical supplies, how many you want. Purchase medical supplies. Thank you very much. So then medical supplies are now loaded into that ship. And if I move down to the console here, and now I can select my ship.
Your ship has been delivered to the following landing pad.
It tells you the pad number on the screen. It doesn't matter if you don't see the pad number, because when you walk away, you can actually see, look there, you can see the icon. It highlights it for you, so it's easy to find. Now you've got the cargo loaded up, you're sort of ready to go. I'll leave a link to a Excel spreadsheet in the description below, where it will tell you all the trading prices you can get for all the different types of goods. So here we are. You can see we've got the cargo on board. Okay, I've decided to spawn in an Avenger Stalker, and I'm going to take you through some of the controls, some of the basic controls. There is a main key inside of Star Citizen. It is F, or depending what you're going to bind it to. If you hold down F, it gives you this sort of free look ability, and it will highlight anything that is interactable around the area. So for instance, once that little round dot shows, then that obviously highlights that there's something that you can interact with. Okay, so let's jump in. Once again, hold down your F key. If there's more options, if you're on the exterior of the ship, it will give you more options, and you just move the mouse up and down to select which option you prefer. And once again, this follows through once you get inside the cockpit. If you hold down F again, it gives the ability to select the controls. There are some quick controls that you can bind in as well. One of the handy ones is definitely H, is to get out the seat quickly. You can get out the seat by
Claimer's a really
holding
good
down
ship.
F and looking this way.
You'll like it.
See exit there.
For sure.
So there are two ways. You can just use F all the time if you choose to. Okay, let's go into flight ready.
Aegis Combat Assist activated. Systems green.
Now simply press spacebar for up and then obviously use your normal navigation controls. When you take off, your landing gear will clearly be down and you will need to detract it. And you can do that by pressing N.
Landing gear retracted.
Okay, next up is navigating. So how do you navigate? Simply by pressing F1, then click on your star map. You can then see the full star map. You can then click on a location. Let's say we want to go to Daymar. Daymar set. I can click on select route. You will notice that this line goes solid now. That means the route is set. So if I close my Mobiglass down now, you will see there's a little green arrow at the corner of the screen showing you the direction. There it is. So if we point ourselves on, once you're on target, you will notice at the top there it says waiting to spool. If you just tap B once, it will then spool up. And then when it's completed spooling, simply hold down B.
Quantum travel initiated.
Not that simple. A lot of times it screws.
So at this point, you should have a little bit of an understanding of the basic controls for Star Citizen. Once you've done this, you can then choose to select one of the missions by going to the mission page. Once you've found a mission that you're interested in doing, select on accept, close your Mobiglass down. You will notice just above at the top of the screen, there's a marker appeared. Press B to open your quantum computer. At this point, you can hold to jump to that location. There is actually another option that you can do. The quantum computer will take you to that location, but if you press F1, go into the star map, zoom right out, you will notice there's this weird looking, probably a square but a different angle, marker here. And if we zoom right in, here we go, you can see it there now. So there are a couple of ways you can traverse. I can set on that location now. What? It is safer to use the F1 key because sometimes there's a marker on top of a marker, if that makes sense. Sometimes there's two locations on top of each other. So by doing it this way, we will then definitely come out at that destination. Now, once you're in quantum, what you can do, if you hold down B, it will actually pull you out of the quantum.
Do that.
It's always handy because you might change your mind if you're doing a long jump.
Quantum travel complete.
The next thing you need to know is how to clear your crime stat. If you look in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you will notice that there is a man's head with a target on it and little red blobs around the edge. The higher the crime stat, the higher that moves round, and that also varies the missions that you can receive. Once it's actually full, some of the stations and some of the locations will shoot you on sight, and also it means that other players can shoot you with no penalisation on their behalf. So, let's go and clear our crime stat. First off, open your Mobiglass. We are going to Crusader, Selling, Security Post, Korea, set location.
Quantum travel complete.
So now you've arrived at Korea, the things to keep in mind is this is a free fire zone. So there could be people waiting inside. So first of all, you should land or either that or hide your ship somewhere else. Then head inside and look for the center console.
Landing
Once you see the console, all you need to do is go up to the console and click and select use. Then, depending on how many crime stats you've got, you need to wait until the crime stats clear down. The bigger the crime stat you've got, the longer it takes, but as it gets smaller, down to like 1 or 2, it then does move a lot faster. I suggest that you take a weapon with you. You can pull your weapon out by pressing 1 or 2 if you've selected assault rifle. You can purchase a full array of weapons in Star Citizen by just visiting some of the stores. Well, overall guys, I hope this video's helped you out. There's lots more to do in Star Citizen. If you carry on playing their missions, they will take you through to the storyline missions as well, when you got to go and talk to different characters and they give you particular missions. And what's going to be really cool is later on down the line when we get ship rentals, you can purchase ships right now, but they're quite expensive if you're coming in with a starter ship. So ship rentals are really going to open up a lot of gameplay for a lot of us. I'm definitely looking forward to that. So I hope you've enjoyed the video today. If you're looking to join a Star Citizen organization or just come and hang out and chat about Star Citizen, check out the link in the description below. That's it from me. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye now.
Well, that was a nice little breakdown of what to do in Star Citizen. And it's under 15 minutes. I actually think I'm going to put this on my desktop. And I'm going to send that to some people that were asking for some help. And I'll put the link to this video here in chat for us. So I really like that you got the Reclaimer. And it's a really good ship. I also had the Reclaimer, but if I was limited on the amount of ships that I had, which I'm kind of not, because I kind of like got almost all of them. When the sale comes up and I would take that Reclaimer and probably trade it in for the Genesis Starliner, as stupid as that sounds. Because, like, day one, in theory, if you have the Starliner, you should be able to go get a contract to take 40 people from this planet to this planet. And they're buying tickets from you, so you don't need to buy cargo. So you don't need money to fill the cargo. The cargo's actually buying the tickets to go to the place. So basically, with no starting money, if you did that, you'd be able to buy a Reclaimer like really quick. And you just keep... But that's the whole thing. Do you really want to drive people around planet to planet for like the first 6 months of the game while everybody else is having fun? But you'd be way far ahead of everybody else. Like you would just, your wealth would just pull in front of everybody. Everybody who does that, their wealth's just gonna go. But it's gonna be like really boring to fly that Starliner. Yes, you could. If you have an 890 jump, you could, but I don't know, because they were saying that you needed to get your rep established before you could take the VIP missions, because the VIP people just aren't going to get on board with just anybody. And that's kind of like what makes purpose for the Phoenix and the 600i, the smaller ones. So I'm going to have to assume that you have to start somewhere, and it's probably not going to be... I don't know how that's going to work. But they said that you had to have like a certain amount of a rep to unlock the missions for the VIP stuff. But the Genesis Starliner would be... I think, yeah, you'd probably work your way up flying the Genesis Starliner. Is how you would get your rep built up to get the VIP missions for the 890 jump. I'm just assuming, because they talked about that. What Crusader Industries will get done first? What do you mean? Crusader Industries spaceship? From the ship company? Let me look. Ships. Manufacturer. Crusader Industries. I believe the Hercules is in Squadron 42 and it might already be done. At least one of the variants for the Hercules is already done and in Squadron 42. And I think this one seriously is already done and in Squadron 42 also. So I think as soon as Squadron 42 comes out, you'll see the flyable Hercules and the flyable Star Runner. And I think this right here will come out. I have no idea. Probably after Squadron 42. Maybe way after. Yeah, because they haven't even flushed out all the variants. Because when this was sold to me, they were like throwing spaghetti on the wall saying that they were gonna have a command center module to change it into a command center, a military thing, and they had all different kinds. Yeah, they said military dropship too at one time. But I got the Prowler for my Class A dropship. Pretty sure I got the Prowler. I'm gonna make sure. No idea. Prowler. My gear. Oh, all shit. Where would the Prowler be? One of the packages. Notes. Uh-oh, what did I do? Get back to where I was. No. See, that was the blue collar. Yes, the Prowler. That's going to be a hell of a dropship. I think that's going to be coming out soon. At least I heard something about the Prowler. Okay, going forward with the news. I want a small mine personnel, small mid personnel transport. You talking like an Argo or something a lot cooler than an Argo? Because there's the Argo, which is the shuttle for the Idris. That's a small mid personnel carrier. And I think the Valkyrie is a small mid personnel carrier. You can get a Valkyrie. Well, get the Valkyrie. Valkyrie, I think, is like 12 people, right? 6 on each side. It's like 3 and 3 with people facing each other on the right and left. A Connie could be a personnel carrier. 600i could definitely be a personnel carrier. Minion Soldier 3 hours ago. Okay. Here we go, Minion Soldier.
Interactive ability and tactileness. So, oh no! No!
My God, Bones.
What was that guy's
have I
name? They went back in time to help him out.
Don't worry
to
about it, man. You got ship insurance.
do
You'll
the
get
warp
it back
drive
in a
thing.
couple of hours. So recently on RTV, Todd Pappy was talking about the topic of ship insurance and item insurance. Things, the things that we add to our ship, whether it's going to be weapons or in the future different systems beyond the ones that come with the stock ship being insured along with the ship. This is the topic.
Just want to grab the volume on his mic and turn it up.
Within CIG, and you would think that
Everything I
since
got.
I'm somebody who has spoken in favor of something like this for a long time, that I would be overjoyed at hearing that. Well, I would be more overjoyed if they said, for implementation in the next patch, but it is what it is, and game development seems to take longer than we all thought it would. But there is a certain downside to the idea that ship insurance just covers everything, that it just replaces everything, and it just puts you right back on your feet. And the downside is that if the ships have no meaning, if the ships are just like a pair of socks, something you use until they're worn out and then you just discard them, that has a detrimental effect, I think, on the game experience. It makes players a lot more prone to making foolish decisions, like going down to Jump Town. It makes players just say, oh, well, who cares? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, it all just blows up. We replace it, and boom, we're back in action. It removes investment. It takes away a certain amount of immersion, I would argue. So while I am in favor of, ship and item insurance, certainly, as someone who's spoken out on that topic multiple times, I was really happy to hear that, but at the same time, there is that danger which is kind of like a knock-on effect of this, which is that ships could end up becoming just disposable accessories, and people would just be prone to just saying, oh, well, let's just see what happens. And you kind of want people to kind of be a little bit more invested in the game and a little bit more careful about how they do things. Certainly, we see the side effects of even the basics of this system already in the in the Stanton system. We see people just ramming ships outside of Olisar, ramming ships off the landing pad. Why do they do it? Because it doesn't matter. Because the ship has no value. It has no meaning. It's just a means to an end, right? So at some point,
I think they
we
do it
have
just to
get
do it.
to a place where losing that ship is something that, while it isn't going to cripple you, it's something that you're really going to want to avoid nonetheless. By granting players item insurance, which is, the different weapons, the different shields, all this stuff that you might fit on your ship, it allows you to preserve progression. So let's say you're moving a certain direction with your ship. You want to change your hammerhead to be all projectiles, or you want to change, I don't know, your reclaimer or whatever. You want to change the fitments. You want to change to a totally different style of weapons. But, you get disconnected from the server. That all gets lost. You suffer all these, any type of setback. Your ship gets blown up. It all gets lost, and you start back at square one, less whatever money that you spent on all these items. Having that item insurance in the game sooner, hopefully, rather than later, preserves, or at least hopefully preserves, a fair amount of that progression, and it gives the gameplay a certain amount of meaning moving forward. However, the time to replace a ship, the entirety of a ship with insurance, I think that as the game hits a certain level of stability, that should start to increase by a large degree. Now, I know that CIG already has plans sort of moving in that direction where they want to increase the time. Of course, like an Idris isn't something that, just pops out of a vending machine. It's something that you may not get replaced same day even, or something beyond that. But I would actually argue that it should be maybe something that, while you don't lose your progression, you still keenly feel the loss. Because if a ship ends up becoming something that's too easily replaced or too conveniently replaced, then it takes meaning away from the gameplay. It takes, you want people to be smart about things. Certainly, like if you take Jumptown, for instance, so many people in the way they approach Jumptown is so stupid. It really is. They just streak down to Jumptown from Grim Hacks, and they type in local, Jumptown clear, and then they just fly right down. And if there's somebody there, they get blown up. If there's nobody there, yay, I get to make some money. I grab some cash, grab some drugs real quick, fly away. And that's generally the way people are approaching it. And I think that that's a bad way to approach it, and that's a bad precedent to set. And certainly with item insurance, that might even go so far as to reinforce that type of behavior. There is an ugly side to it, of course. And I think that at the same time, if you start to increase the time that it takes to replace a ship, and you start to increase the cost of rushing that ship, you're going to start to see players within that system start to become a little bit smarter. Something like ramming people off the landing pads at Olisar and blowing up their ships all of a sudden becomes a very costly activity. It becomes a very costly waste of time. And certainly going down to Jumptown, all of a sudden it's, I want to make that money, but I got to be smart about this. Maybe what I should do is kind of go get a little bit closer to Jumptown and try to stealth out my ship as much as possible, and then creep around and see if there's anybody there, or if there are some people there, maybe just hide out for a while, wait till they all take off or go someplace else, then move in, get my money, and, do it that way. Maybe I should start being smart about it rather than just kind of rushing in and saying, oh, well, whatever happens is whatever happens, because I'm going to get my ship back and my stuff back now anyways, I think that the idea of preserving a player's progression is a great idea, but the idea of, making it convenient You know, just, oh, well, I'll get my ship back in a couple hours. I'm just going to go have a cup of coffee and watch a movie and then come back. I don't think that it should ever be that way. I think that by making the system challenging in that way, you increase the level of investment in those activities. You increase the level of immersion, and you certainly do increase the excitement. I mean, one of the things that I really loved about EVE Online back in the day when we were doing.
How do I feel about LTI? Like, what do you mean? How do I feel about it? I mean, do I approve or disapprove of it? Do I like it, dislike it? Is that what you want to know? Is it a good idea, bad idea? I think that, I don't know, LTI. Yeah, it sells ships, so it's good for selling ships. It makes them a lot of money, but they lied about it. They lied about LTI, and it was supposed to be a special thing, and now they use it to just get new money in the thing. I think now that it's like spoiled, and because they lied, so every time I hear the word LTI, it just makes me hate them a little bit because they lied. So I would say I would get rid of it just to not have something that you lied about still going out there, because a lot of people aren't ever going to forget about that. I think the Noobifier made a video about what they should do with the LTI, and he broke it down, like everything that they should do, and it all pretty much made sense. And it was like, get rid of LTI altogether, put all the ships up for sale all the time, no more artificial scarcity. I mean, just, yeah, get rid of all that. Get rid of all the things that they lied about and jerked people around with. And then the gray market won't exist no more. It'll be great.
Doing a lot of station warfare way back when. This is, you know, just before POSes, I think, came into the game, right before Dreadnoughts came in. When we
I
were
think it's
doing a lot
bad
of
publicity
zero-zero
to keep it
warfare
on,
and a lot of battleship
because
fleet
it
battles.
generated negative
Is, you know, that
publicity.
sense
So I
of
think
loss, that
they should
fear
just get
that
rid of it.
something could, you know, come along and just blow your ship out of the sky, certainly was very scary, and it did add to the
Everybody should
excitement
just have it.
of,
You buy
of
a
the
ship.
moment. It
Everybody
made
gets
the
it.
moment a lot more tense and a lot more
Period.
immersive and just fantastic. But at the same time, the downside to that was, you know, I used to have a hangar where I just had all these Tempests, you know, battleships lined up, ready to go. So if I got blown up, I'd just get into another one, and you know, just like that. And it got to a point where I wasn't even naming my ship anymore. I didn't even care. The ship was just a tool. It was just a disposable razor. I didn't even give a shit about it. It's like, oh well, that's all used up, you know, and just throw it away. And I would hate to see the ships in Star Citizen start.
Okay, LTI becomes important when they're trying to pitch a sale that has LTI like a push mechanism, like, but if you buy new money, you get the LTI and not the regular, and if you spend the new money and not credit, that LTI could, you know, save you, you know, I mean, but when they're talking about it in an argument sake, you know, oh, LTI, it doesn't matter, you know, it's, you know, as he says, it's nice to have, but it's not that important. So I've heard him say that I've seen it. I've seen SIG at sale time make LTI seem like it really is something, and then when it needs not to be something, they say it's not. So I don't know, dude. It's just LTI is just a a bad tool. I think everybody that buys a ship with cash of any kind should just have LTI, and everything that's bought in the game then should just have whatever.
Start to go that way, and I think that with item insurance, that is a danger. That is something that you have to acknowledge. I mean, certainly I'm one of the big proponents of the idea, but at the same time, I do have to acknowledge that there is a potential downside if it's not implemented correctly. And that downside could be the fact that, you know, like I showed the clip at the beginning, a moment like that, it's this great moment. It's a meaningful moment in certainly in Star Trek lore. But if Enterprises were just being shot out of a friggin' vending machine, then would you really give a shit about the Enterprise anymore? Right? And they'd just be like, oh, well, whatever. As long as we survive, we'll just keep, we'll just go get another one and we'll do it all over again. Right? So I think that that's going to be an interesting thing to watch if they do actually implement item insurance in the game, which I'm all for. Is I hope that they balance it in such a way that a ship loss is still something that's very keenly felt. Obviously, smaller ships, things like Auroras or Freelancers or something, far more abundant in the universe, easier and much faster to replace. But the big ships, the Hammerheads, the Reclaimers, things like that, they should cost a whole lot more in terms of time to replace them. So people be a little bit more careful and a little less foolish with it. Anyways, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.
Alright, that was Minion Soldiers video. Now we will progress. I'm pretty sure they don't have another one. Citizen Gamer. It's the one yesterday, the Blastcast we did. Oh, Super Mac sometimes. Oh, video. Oh. I don't know if we watched this one yesterday or not. I'm gonna have to start writing it down. Alright, here we go. RTX, ray tracing. Huh? Okay. Ray tracing, Star Citizen, Board Gamer. Here we go. Don't be bummed out about the character release date. There's no game. The release date's like irrelevant until there's a game.
Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today looking at some of the dev responses and information from Spectrum, the Star Citizen forums, on gas cloud tech, RTX support, and server tick rates.
I prefer the ships to stay in the oven and cook longer. The longer they cook, the better they seem to be. I mean, didn't you notice like the big improvements of like when they start coming out with like the Hercules and the Valkyrie, and all these newer ships seem to be better made than the older ships, in my opinion. I think the longer they cook, the better.
There was a Spectrum thread by TBSTR titled Different Tick Rates in Different Places with Server Meshing. So as I understand, if server meshing all goes to plan, then you'll be able to segregate servers based on areas in game, like a planet or building. It posed 3 questions that were answered by CIG's Clive Johnson. Are server ticks linked to the client inputs, like Valve's games, for instance? No, the servers run the simulation as fast as they can, up to a maximum of 30 frames per second. The packet rate sent by a server is determined by its frame rate and how many entities are updated and have new data sent to the clients. Neither the frame rate of a client or the frame rate at which it sends packets to the...
This is what I don't like. It's just, this could be just me, but I really hope that there's an option to not have all this stuff blocking your view. When I play a game, I don't want to be looking at the inside of my helmet, bro. I don't like any of that, dude. I don't mind it if it's transparent and I can see through it, but all this blocking stuff, dude, it's like, damn, you're turning my ultra wide monitor into like a 800 by 600 console resolution, a postage stamp.
The server have any influence on that? Will the AI be improved with a higher tick rate? AI logic is entirely run on the servers, and the higher a server's frame rate, the faster the AI think is, leading to quicker reaction times. Their ability to plan ahead isn't really affected by frame rate, though so faster frames won't make them smarter. Some recent bugs with the AI have been due to desync issues, where what you see on the client no longer reflects what they're doing on the server. Good old-fashioned bug fixing and continuing to flesh out the AI systems are where the improvements will come from. Is it possible to have a higher tick rate server in places with a concentrated amount of FPS combat on a planet's surface or in a bunker, for instance? Yes, it would be possible, but this is not something we're currently considering. Running a server at a higher frame rate means it can't update as many players and other entities. Since servers cost money to run, we want them to simulate as many entities and players as possible. The final version of server meshing should allow us to balance the load between multiple servers so that we can maintain a consistent frame rate on all of them. Concentrated FPS combat in a bunker between a fairly large number of players may warrant that bunker being given its own server. The same number of players spread out over the surface of a moon may mean that the entire moon can be simulated at the same frame rate just by one server. I thought that was an interesting little thread there. It's nice to know that they're planning not to go above 30 ticks on their servers. That's sort of like what they're optimizing them to for all of their optimizations. They're just trying to get as many players now on as possible on each individual server, because that's basically going to be the bottleneck when it comes to server meshing. How many players can you get into a single small room that a single server will run? NVIDIA's ray tracing and RTX tech has been talked about by CIG before, mainly them sort of saying that they'd use it if it was sensible for them, as they will with most tech, but at the moment, it doesn't look worthwhile for them to integrate at this stage anyway. And more recently, in regard to RTX, there was a thread by Blue Dirk asking, do you believe that RTX tech will save devs much work further along and look absolutely spanking? Ben Parry answered, not in the slightest. I expect if we use it, it'll be a massive headache and time sink, but might give us some subtle improvements in looks or performance if we get it right. So it does sound like they're still not really interested in the RTX stuff. The thread continued, do you plan to try it or make some research anyway? Ben replied, I'd love to, it looks fun, but at the moment we have other high priority tasks on the roadmap. There was some more replies. I assumed it would be less work due to the whole add a light and voila, no need for environmental lighting thing. Ben again said that it's more likely to be a case of we've got a testbed scene for ray tracing based environment lighting techniques. It works for one.
When he says Ben, who is he talking about? He's not talking about Ben Lesnick, right? Ben's retired. Well, what Ben is he talking about?
Type of light so far. Here's a list of things that you can no longer safely have in a room without it breaking, with rough possibilities of how likely we are to work out a solution. The added headache is that whatever we offered would have to be an as well feature rather than an instead feature. Developing a feature for a single manufacturer's top-end cards means also maintaining feature parity for everyone else's hardware. Ben said that he'd personally like to use it to make shadows crispier. He then went on to say, by as well, I meant we'd have to maintain support for 2 modes. A mode that uses ray tracing, though probably not exclusively, in some way to get its results, and a mode that doesn't use ray tracing but can achieve a similar look without changing the art assets or lighting setup. As an example, when we ported over the voxel fog, we intended it to be an as well feature because it's expensive to run, but eventually ran with it as an instead feature because it interprets the fog parameters totally differently and drastically changes what does and doesn't work in terms of light placement. Another question posed to Ben on the same thread was, to your knowledge, is there anything promising on the horizon, even in the distant horizon, when it comes to providing high quality perspective correct reflections in games, in scenes with large numbers of reflective surfaces and moving objects, and without the limitations of screen space reflections aside from ray tracing? He replied, indeed not. That's one of the improvements in looks that we'd expect to get out of it. The headache part is writing all the management code that would be needed, e.g. to calculate lighting, shadowing on objects that aren't seen on screen. Ben was also asked to respond to an article that stated Star Citizen's development had already passed the point of adding whole new graphical technologies. Ben, in reply, said, I think the author might have jumped the gun a little, especially in saying that the writing is on the wall for NVIDIA just because one dev on a project already deep in development thinks it'll be hard work to retrofit brand new tech that doesn't yet have a broad install base. Ray tracing is probably great, and I'd love to work on something with it. It's just unfortunate that we've got a lot of rather mundane tasks and hopefully some less mundane ones that we need to complete for the game to work as intended. Also, in regard to gas cloud tech being moved off or obscured from the schedule and roadmap for the Persistent Universe, Ben said, I'm currently working on gas cloud tech, though to be clear, this is just the underlying tech side of it.
Ben Perry.
We're using it for Squadron 42.
Ben
Obviously,
Perry, CIG
it doesn't cover
bottom.
any particular
I
usage
saw it.
of
It's
it
Ben
in
Perry.
the Persistent Universe, though we do intend to use it, and it's not intended to be used for weather or planetary clouds, so anything to do with them isn't affected by its schedule. Fog and weather are definitely not something we're trying to handle via the gas cloud system. Crusader may layer it in if it's useful, though that would mean adding extra features that it doesn't otherwise need. Currently on the Squadron 42 roadmap for completion Q4 2019 is Gas Cloud VFX improvements, implementing a series of improvements to Gas Cloud Tech VFX, expanding on the existing data-driven system to allow effects to visually reflect the conditions of the gas cloud. This will also build out the toolset to allow artists and designers to dynamically control these effects. It remains to be seen what of Gas Cloud Tech or improvements to it will make it into the Persistent Universe this year, though. We do know that the weather's being worked on in the Frankfurt studio, but we have no idea how far it is down the line, but obviously it isn't affected by that sort of gas cloud tech that they're working on separately, and also the gas cloud tech that they're going to be using for Crusader, although it might be related to the gas cloud tech that they've got for Squadron 42 planned. It's not exactly the same and needs more work to get into the game. Every month we have a Star Citizen ship giveaway for February. It's for a Cutlass Black and Star Citizen game package. All you need to do is be subscribed to the channel and comment on any of my videos made during the month. If you don't have a gaming PC yet, or you are upgrading, instead consider Shadow Cloud Gaming. They allow you to leverage the powers of the internet to stream a high-spec Windows 10 environment.
Alright. Here we go. Board Gamer. I'm going to link that for you guys. I don't know how to answer that question. In theory, RTX is better because it's real, and GTX isn't because it's faked. RTX is the right way of doing it, but we never had the processing power to try to do it. But now that they think that they have the processing power, for some reason they can only get Battlefield 5 to do like, I don't know, like 50 FPS tops. I don't know. I don't know. I got Battlefield 5 and I can show you ray tracing, and it's not really done really well. And that's the only game that we have to do ray tracing on, so I don't know, dude. We'll have to see. We'll have to see some more games, but there's something else besides the ray tracing, the DSLR stuff or something. I think that's what it's called. I'm not 100% sure, but it's got nothing to do with ray tracing, but you need the RTX to do it still, and it improves games a lot. So there's another thing about it, but it's not ray tracing. Well, the 2070 came out, and I guess it's $499. So if you went back to the 10 series cards, the $499 slot was the 1080. So you have to compare it to a 1080, and they're saying it's about the same. So you can get a 2070 and get 1080 performance for $499. But damn, I don't know. They're crazy. All right, so next up, let's see the Astro, see if he came out. No more Galactic Historian. Okay. See if Noobs. I didn't get a message from Noob saying he had a video today. No new video today. So we'll go to my website. My website, which is gaming.com. This is my website. This is my baby. And then we'll go over to the games here. Star Citizen. I swear I clicked on it. Good. My website get banned. Like everything else I do gets banned. What I did. Definitely not working. Alright, there it is. I don't know what was going on there. I go open a new link. I have to investigate that. What the hell's going on? Alright, so going to the official news here. We were working on this lore master's guide, trying to learn something about the universe. And I do the news Wednesday and Thursdays early morning East Coast. So on Wednesday morning we do like all the videos that we haven't seen yet, and on Thursday morning, which is now, we don't really have a lot of videos and news to talk about because we did it all yesterday. So I do like a couple lore videos. and then we do some gameplay. So we're going to do a couple lore videos just to try to educate ourselves about Star Citizen. And we're working our way kind of like down the list here. And yeah, we left off here. So we'll do this one and this one. And they're not too long. They're like 15 minutes. So in about a half hour from now, we'll be doing gameplay. After we get our education. What system was this? The Kronos system. We're going to learn about the Kronos system. Yeah, there's no reason to get rid of your 1070
Welcome to another
Ti.
edition of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you haven't seen the show before, this is a chance for one of the members of the lore team to sit down, give you a personal tour of one of the systems that will be appearing in Star Citizen or potentially Squadron 42. We'll give you a little insight to the astronomy that went into creating the system, and a little bit about the history of where it is and how it exists in the world, and all that fun stuff. Now, this time around, we're going to be visiting a system that's always been shrouded in controversy. Well, technically it started more as having a lot of kind of like political government secrecy around it, which then evolved into controversy. So today we're going to go off to the system of Kronos. Now, to help visualize this journey, we're going to use the handy star map, which we have here centered on Earth. We're going to go to the search bar, and let's head on out to Kronos. Now, Kronos is from Earth. All the jumps, I believe I looked at it yesterday, it would be, if you're taking a large jump points only, it'll take you about 12 jumps to get to Kronos, which is a bit of a trip. Let me back out here and just show you where it is, because it is off on the fringes of the UEE. And that's one of the reasons why, after this system was discovered in 2863, people wondered why in the world the UEE would even want to hold on to it. Now, as you can see here, I turned on the large jump points, and it shows you it's connected to Kellogg, and this is where the system was discovered from in 2863, reportedly by the 18th Battle Fleet. Now, just so you know, that discovery is in dispute in a court case that's currently going through the UEE legal system. There's a lawsuit by the family of Contrali, is the last name of the family, who credits their grandfather with actually discovering the system from Kellogg and actually submitting official paperwork to say such, but the UEE government kind of covering it up and using the fact that Contrali basically had a number of warrants out for his arrest for basically poaching orms, which are a kind of like sentient species that do live in Kellogg too. And the fact that he was basically a wanted criminal at the time, that the UEE has denied him and his family the right to be the rightful kind of discoverers of this system. Now, for those that are familiar with Kellogg, not only is it protected planets there because of the kind of like sentient species
Kellogg
that are
last
on one of the
week.
planets, it's also home to Quarterdeck, which is the massive UEE prison
We did
that's there.
Quarterdeck.
So there's really not a lot of reasons to go to Kellogg in the first place, which made it interesting why, even though it's connected, Kronos is connected to it, that the UEE would hold on to it. There's one other jump point that connects Kronos, and it goes to Branagh, which is an unclaimed system that's just sitting out.
This is very important, dude, because if you listen to them, they tell you that this planet's going to specialize in this and that, and you can kind of like, I got a notebook that I've been keeping, and because the trade routes have to go along with the lore, so these lore videos are actually exposing what's going to be the most profitable trade routes. So a person that's brand new to the game, if they know all the lore, they'll know where to go inside these trades out to buy what and where to sell it. all these trade routes are they talk about.
Out here. So as you see, if I grab the star mat and kind of move it around, you've got, it's out here in the middle of nowhere. It's not really connected to anything. So what about the system made the UEE so interested in it? Well, let's go in and take a look at it right now. As you'll first see is that the sun is a G3V type main sequence star. It's yellow-white, and it's very similar to the sun that's in the center of the Sol system. So that was one of the appealing things to start off with, is that it looks very similar. It has a very similar mass and luminosity as what we have in Sol. So there was a general familiarity with it. The first thing that is kind of close to it, as you'll notice, is that the two planets that are in the system are really close to the star. They're actually inside the green line here. The first one is Bruder. This is a rocky mesoplanet, and this is only about 0.3 AU away from the sun. It does have a lot of metallic ores in the planet's surface, but being only 0.3 AU away from the sun means that the surface temperatures are extreme and basically make any mining operations there virtually impossible. Now, the second planet in the system, as we spin this way, is Schwester, right here. And this is a little further away. It's about 0.5 AU away, but it's actually warmer than Bruder because there are a lot of gases that, in a very thick atmosphere here, which trap the heat from the sun and basically build up a greenhouse gas effect on the planet that makes it even more inhospitable to humanity than Bruder. So why keep it? Why, if this system upon discovery had a sun like this, two planets very close to the center of the system, and that it? There were conspiracy theories about exactly why for years and years and years. Some, believed that they would track these military shipments and haulers going in and out of the system from Kellogg. Some assumed that they were working on some kind of secret doomsday device. Others, more creatively, maybe suggested some kind of invisible space station. It ran the gamut of possibilities, and even drove one conspiracy theorist to actually stow away aboard one of these kind of like ships that were taking supplies into the system. She went in, she came back out, and she basically announced that she hadn't seen anything. There was nothing there that seemed out of the ordinary. It just seemed like another system that they were making a run to back and forth. Now, of course, the conspiracy theory circles thought that this meant that they'd gotten to her and that there was something very, very big and dramatic there that the UEE was hiding and that they had to basically, cover up. It only intensified the conspiracy theories, even though there was literally not a shred of evidence that anything really crazy was going there. Eventually, in 2872, the Imperator Corbin Salehi sat down and explained exactly why the UEE had decided to hold on to the system. And as we back up the map here, I finally can bring it into view what we had decided to do here. And that is basically create a world from scratch. The project was known as Project Archangel, and the world is, as you'll know, is Synth World, which is... So
this is probably going to end up being a trading outpost for something, this Synth World. You'll be flying there one time and be like, oh yeah, Twister talked about this even before the game was on this crazy show that he used to do after work, all dressed up as a wolf. Yeah, this guy was crazy.
Right here, it's this representation of it is just a first pass. It's literally being constructed and put together right now. But this system, where there were two planets and the inner part where there would be no population, there would be no industry going on there, seemed like a perfect test ground to try this very, very kind of ambitious project because it wouldn't be disturbing any local inhabitants. It wouldn't be impeding on any economic value that the system would provide. It had a star at the center, which we were familiar with and could deal with. And being able to have this vast expanse past Schwester, to be able to find the exact right point to be able to build this planet kind of seemed to make sense for Imperator Salehi and this project. Now, Project Archangel came about because of something called the Clark Committee. And the Clark Committee was kind of brought together after the downfall of the Messers and the massacre of Garen II, where an entire kind of like planet's ecosystem was wiped away by terraforming just so humanity could economically take advantage of it. And humanity realized the UE had a bad reputation with the Banu and the Xi'an for the way that they handled themselves. So they wanted to try to think of very ambitious, positive projects that they could focus on. The most extreme, basically, proposal that the Clark Committee put out there was creating our own world. That way, we don't need to terraform anything anymore. We can literally just build a world, populate it, to our specifications, and it would solve those problems. When this plan first came forward, it was seen as extreme and crazy, but Imperator Salehi was absolutely convincing. He had kind of rose to the Imperatorship on a wave of positive, kind of open and ambitious government. People at the time were sick of the, kind of like getting over the Messers. They were sick of this entrenched corruption that was still a part of the system. And he kind of countered that message, came in, brought this kind of like positive message with him, and basically convinced the political and the public that this would be a worthwhile project. Now, for years, this project did go on with the full support of the UEE and the population. Haulers were more than willing to bring shipments to this like far corner of the galaxy for not a lot of profit because they know it was going to some greater good and some greater purpose. As the decades wore on and the synth world was still being constructed and billions upon billions and billions of credits being spent on it, the appetite for it kind of lessened a little bit. This was really kind of like, it really hit a turning point in 2922 when Corbin Salehi, who was no longer Imperator at the time, had kind of like moved on with his life, was still the main advocate for the synth world. He ended up dying unexpectedly due to complications to his artificial pancreas. Now, when the synth world's biggest cheerleader passed away, all of a sudden the positivity and the idea that this could be something humanity could achieve kind of wilted at the same time. What happened shortly thereafter in 2925 made things even worse. Basically, Schwester here, with the greenhouse gases, the part of the Synth World project were to put refineries and different ore stations on this planet to help trap the gases and use them in the construction of Synth World. So when an independent auditor went to Schwester to look at these refineries, they discovered they weren't there. One of the project managers, Ellie Canis, basically had skimmed billions of dollars of credits off the project and just never built the refineries on Schwester. Now, what happened to that is the Terra Gazette and other papers that were against the massive government spending on the synth world splashed headlines across their front pages showing how many credits had been wasted on this basically embezzlement plot. And for the first time, the citizens and civilians of the Empire finally got an idea of exactly how much money was being spent to create a planet that didn't really seem to be coming together as fast as they had hoped or had been promised. This is when basically a lot of the kickback to the synth world started to go into high gear. For those who are interested in the political breakdowns of the current UEE, One of the parties is called the Transitionalist. Their center is in Terra. They believe that Terra should be the center of humanity and the center of the UEE going forward. That Terra has always been on the forefront of where humanity needs to go. They are firmly against spending more money on the synth world. They have called it something akin to a financial vampire on the Empire, and part of the reason why the UEE in 2947 faces so many looming budgetary crises is because of the money being spent on this. In fact, last year, Rachel Lester, who is a Transitionalist Party member who's in the Senate as a representative from Van in Croatia, actually put forward a sensible synth world amendment, which would basically take the funding for the synth world is mandatory in the UEE budget. The sensible synth world amendment would have made it discretionary, meaning every single year it would have been on the chopping block and would have been up for vote as to whether we keep funding this project or not. So there is some heavy opposition growing stronger every day within even the halls of the Senate and other parts of the UEE government, that this ambitious synth world project, which was meant to show what humanity could achieve when we came together and focused on the good of a side of things, to basically put that by the wayside. Now you'll notice here the synth world orbiting it is Archangel Station. Now this is basically the main hub for the synth world. This is where the researchers, this is where the people who are building it, this is where they're stationed. This is where, if you're going to bring in a bunch of ore or minerals or something to help the project, this is where you're going to be dropping it off. Visiting synth world right now while under construction is, well, the 18th Battle Fleet, which still patrols this system and is based at Archangel Station, would not take to that kindly. So this is where you're going to want to go to drop off, look for missions, drop off anything you're hauling into the system for them. It is also, besides being the home to the 18th Battle Fleet, it is also home to the 999 Test Squadron, which, if you are familiar with the history of that, has been around since the earliest days of human space travel. This goes way back to even before there was a Navy that patrolled the skies. It goes back to some of the people that tested the very first spaceships for humanity that were able to go and visit the deep corners of the Sol system and test a lot of the experimental spaceships that would eventually then become commonplace thanks to their testing of their components and stuff like that. So the 999 Test Squadron, also known as the Reckless, Reckless with a W, WRECKLESS. They're all about making sure that when they do test these ships and new components, that they don't wreck. They're very dedicated to staying safe and secure. But with this vast expanse of space out here on the outer reaches of the system, it is the perfect location for a test squadron to be based, so they can have all this surrounding space to test different ships and stuff like that with a minimal interference from the public or anything else. The 99th Test Squadron is a fascinating story, but that is a story for another time, one which you can also find on the RSI website amongst our other lore positions, lore posts and stuff like that. So that is the Kronos system for you to get to know a little bit. Again, nothing too crazy except for the fact that we're trying to build a planet.
All right, last one. Then we'll do some Mech Warrior gameplay. Blow some things up with giant robots. Hey, cool.
Hello, and welcome to another installment of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. My name is Dave Haddock. I am the lead writer over here at Cloud Imperium Games, And if this is your first experience with Lore Makers, let me bring you up to speed. We have a lot of star systems in Star Citizen, and each of those systems have their own particular history and flavor and whatnot. And so we
He's
use
turned
the
up as
show,
far as I can turn him up.
as an opportunity to delve into some of the particularly interesting aspects of each system and try to provide some insight as to not only like the system itself, but sort of why we picked the things that we picked to make it the way it is. So this episode was a bit of a challenge. Before we do tape these shows, you know, in the writers' room, we tend to circle up and figure out who's going to do what system and stuff like that. So when talking it over with Will, Sherry, and Adam, we started realizing that we are quickly running out of systems because we've been doing this for a little while. So we raised the question of what we're going to do after we deplete our supply. Should we tackle corporations next? Do we do deeper dives on specific cities or landing zones, planets, etc.? You know, do we go back and do time capsules that we did in the initial crowdfunding phase? That was a timeline of that leads from modern day to the Star Citizen era. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. So I don't know, wanted to post to you guys and see what you were interested in. If you have any ideas, feel free to post them in the comments below. So anyway, long story short, it was a little tricky to pick out a system. I had done a couple, but I ended up going with the Hadrian system. This is actually another one of our older systems. It was originally a part of our system unlock in the initial crowdfunding phase. It's basically kind of been with us since the beginning. And back then it was basically a much more kind of high-level view of it. And yes, obviously it's named Hadrian after the Roman emperor and wall that separated Britain. And it was named that because it was basically, its original position was, it was going to be the sort of border system between human and Xi'an during a sort of Cold War-esque tension thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's jump right in and get the astrographic stuff out of the way. So let's go to our trusty star map here. And as always, we're going to start off on Earth just to give you a sense of kind of where the system lines up basically with in the galaxy. So let's zoom out, and turn on jump points. And I'm going to go to 2D because it's easier to navigate. So Sol system over here, so Earth. And just to call it out, you have Terra over here. Hadrian system is right here. And so the important thing, again, obviously, is the fact that it's kind of close to all of these systems, which are Xi'an-controlled systems. It's also got a lot of jump points connected to it, which is kind of fun too. But it is directly connected to Castra and Keel, which is kind of important because that basically, and actually Baker too, kind of form the wall that the name of the system is sort of referring to. Now, the eagle-eyed people in our crowd might notice, well, the systems that are connected to Hadrian, Gurzel, and Oya up here are technically blue. They're UEE ones, which is true, but they weren't always that way. These systems, along with Tohil, Horus, Pallas, Hader, Indra, and there we go, Virtus over here, were actually part of what was known as the Peri line. And so, but we'll get back to that and go into it. So getting into the system itself with Hadrian, we'll kind of start to zoom in on this. Hadrian actually wasn't the original name of the system. It was actually named Nivelin, which is named the founder of the
Hadrian,
company who originally discovered the system from Pyro. Interestingly enough, that was where the first jump point was discovered. And they ended up selling it because the company was actually kind of broke and needed the money. So it was discovered in 2510, and let's jump in here, and we have a big star right in the middle, which is interesting because it's actually technically a red dwarf star. So it is somewhat big. So zooming out, you can kind of see we have Hadrian 1, Hadrian 2, Hadrian 3. Now, the interesting thing, actually, aside from the sort of red dwarf, is that Hadrian 1 and Hadrian 2 are actually gas giants. That's kind of, weirdly enough, and also kind of in the, what's now, I guess, the green zone of the star. And then you've got a asteroid belt, which I think is represented, yeah, the Hadrian belt. And then on the outskirts, you have Hadrian 3, which is actually nicknamed, which is an ice giant, I believe, nicknamed the Watcher because it has a large dark spot on the sort of otherwise pale planet. And yeah, so you got two gas giants and an ice giant. So at the time, you know, the UNE couldn't really do much with this. There's not a lot to terraform here. So there wasn't a lot going on for Nivlin's system as far as like sending inhabitants and stuff like that. But there was an asteroid field and planets and stuff, so there's opportunities for resources. So they kind of opened it up for resource harvesting, and particularly in the asteroid belt. So again, it was discovered in 2510. So flash forward a bit, and we're actually going to zoom out here because in 2530.
So I'm writing down Hadrian and mining.
The Xi'an, and discovered is an interesting way of putting it. To give it some context, basically at that time, humanity was sort of in the thrall of a massive expansion thing. So there was the idea is like jump drives were becoming more accessible, so more people were kind of in space and able to sort of start scanning for jump points, and terraforming tech was starting to be refined. So basically there was this huge push and just influx of people just getting out there and trying to kind of discover new systems and new resources and stuff like that. So, you know, kind of unsurprisingly, this led to a lot of greed and kind of questionable behavior. And so anyway, so when Oya's system was discovered, a small terraforming outfit basically like blazed into the system, sort of desperately trying to stake a claim, and started to set up their terraforming machines on a planet, and didn't really check to see if the planet was actually uninhabited. And it turned out it wasn't. So, hi Xi'an, that's how we met. So in 2539, they discovered this jump point into Gurzil, and basically that wasn't that big a deal in and of itself, but when a Xi'an scout ship popped into the system from an unknown jump point, suddenly Hadrian's system, or Nivlin's system, was now sort of at the forefront of a lot of basically the Xi'an Empire. So the UPE sealed it off from civilian use, and the military moved in. Now, again, bear in mind, right now the tensions with them were high, but it was not war yet. But at the same time, they were just trying to play it safe and stuff like that. And you know, they had still a couple of years before the first war with the Tavaran, which was real bad. Anyway, so once Ivar Messer rose to power, he used this sort of this undercurrent of paranoia about the Xi'an and kind of fed it. He sort of he would feed it with this sort of sense of like an inevitable invasion that would one day come, and all this stuff, and fear of the Xi'an and stuff like that, as a way to sort of cement his power and whatnot. And he even very famously implicated what he said were Xi'an assassins were responsible for a series of bombings against civilian population centers, and that was one of the things that catapulted him into sort of this new what was called the prime citizen, which he later revamped to become the imperator and basically seize control entirely of the government, which led to several centuries of despots, which is, you know. So anyway, so during the Messer reign, basically they constantly had the Xi'an as a bad guy, a sort of the boogeyman that they could always kind of loom over the people as something like, you know, you need us to help keep them at bay type thing. So basically there was that thing with war was kind of in the air, and Hadrian, as it was renamed now to reflect the sort of the wall mentality, was the center point. So you have Hadrian, Castra, and Kiel are now connected to these systems up here, which formed the Perry line. So this was basically kind of the no man's land. So right on the other side of no one inhabited these systems.
The
and
Perry
right on the other side of
line.
these systems were connected to Xi'an ones. So
Yeah, last week they were talking about this place right here, the Toe Hill that was on the Perry line.
they basically just sort of demilitarized all of these and then set up watch points in all of these systems to keep an eye on making sure that no one was coming in and through these jump points. So the military would like lace the area with mines, military bases, battle groups, basically all.
This is going to be our
war that, they
expressways.
didn't know this at the time, but would never come. And that's kind of how it stayed for a really long time. This very kind of tense stalemate of paranoia and fear, and just sort of chomping at the bit, fingers on triggers type thing, waiting for the Xi'an to make a move, and vice versa, them waiting for us to get aggressive and make a move. So it was definitely, took two to tango in that one. So that was basically the status quo in Hadrian. So it was primarily a military system. Civilians weren't allowed there. Tons of weapons and ordnance and stuff like that were sort of laced around, and anti-invasion countermeasures and stuff like that. And that was basically it. So once the messengers were finally ostracized and the new government kind of stepped in, a big aspect of it was ratcheting down and sort of de-escalation, like taking away a lot of the tension that had existed between us and the Xi'an. And so in 2793, they basically dissolved the Perry line. So all of these systems basically were divided between the UEE and the Xi'an, and in sort of an attempt to kind of let people back in and breed more trust between the two. But interestingly enough, now Hadrian has sort of lost its sense of purpose. Because again, it sort of had its identity defined by the fact that it was the sort of the center point, kind of tip of the spear type thing against the Xi'an invasion, and now it didn't have that. So, and again, it was not like there were landing zones or planets or stuff like that where people could live and develop their own kind of culture. The culture was military and war. So in the wake of this, while there were discussions about reopening the system for mining opportunities and stuff like that, unfortunately, centuries of ordnance, and anti-invasion tech and all this stuff that was scattered throughout the system made it really tough to fly around, basically, really dangerous. So, the military tried to clean out what they could, but the idea was that there was still a very high potential that there were old munitions kind of just lurking out there in space. So it was very dangerous and stuff. So they're trying to kind of, clean it up. But interestingly enough, now, Hadrian's sort of poised to be at start a new chapter in its existence, basically. As we've been talking about in a lot of the news updates, recently there was the passage of the Human Xi'an Trade Initiative, or HUSHA, and Hadrian basically is sort of poised to be sort of a main travel point now. It's obviously you can see connected to Terra, and could be a kind of a major way into into Xi'an space. So it basically has kind of the potential to open up a lot of trade from both sides coming through and help maybe give it that identity that's been sort of lacking. So that's basically Hadrian historically. Now, as far as the sort of character and flavor for the system itself, for me, one of the things that was sort of appealing about them as a system was having this idea of sort of being haunted by the specter of war. We sort of allude to that in a couple other ones. Hades, for example, is sort of the relics of this sort of ancient battle. It's that sort of ancient battlefield thing where it's just like, we don't know exactly what happened, but whatever lived there is dead, and we can see the effects of that devastating war. But Hadrian was different, because Hadrian is basically sort of war unfulfilled. And there was something just kind of fun about that concept, like it was there, it was poised to fight, but it never actually did. And then it had to kind of ratchet itself down. So, you have the system that was cultivated for war and now forced to kind of figure out who it is. And which is actually something it kind of shares with Castra, that was also going through a similar kind of identity crisis. But at the same time, Castra, has planet-side locations and stuff like that. And they've started to build their own culture, but Hadrian doesn't have that to fall back on. So it'll be kind of interesting to see sort of how they, you know, how they handle it. So that was just sort of what was sort of the fun challenge.
How they handle it.
So
Yeah. How they handle it.
so yeah, that's basically Hadrian in a nutshell, and that'll do it for this episode of Lore Maker's Guide to the
All
Galaxy. As always, I urge everybody to check out the
It's
Star
time
app,
to shift in the
on our
mech
site,
warrior mode.
because it can give you fun.
Even a message can stop me.
Mech warrior. Online. Solaris 7.
Achieved with CryEngine.
Don't forget it's Valentine's Day, guys. Yes, it is Valentine's Day. My dog's collar's beeping. Yeah. All right. Oh my God. Oh, they're soft. Thank God. Okay. Be right back. I gotta go to the mall. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I have a wolf dog and he's got a collar with a buzzer on it. And the wife thought that he was outside and she kept hitting the buzzer on the dog's collar. And the dog was down here with me. And he don't listen to her. He listens to me, and he don't want to be. He was just like, he wasn't having it, so I had to take the collar off of him. It was weird. Alright, we gotta change this to Mech Warrior. Give me a second. Change this real quick. Updating the information real quick. I think the stream's gonna end and start back up quick. I'll start a new reel for YouTube.